Deep within Russia's frozen Ural mountains stands a place where one mystery has refused to die for more than 60 years. On February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers began a journey into these mountains. Before nightfall, the group paused for a simple photograph. It captured nothing unusual, just 9 friends standing together in the frozen wilderness. With every step, the weather grew harsher. The familiar landscape slowly disappeared beneath snow and wind. Before darkness completely covered the mountain, the group built what they believed would be a safe shelter for the night.
Inside the tent, everything felt ordinary.
Then, the mountain grew silent. Far from civilization, surrounded by endless snow and darkness. At some point during that freezing night, something changed.
When the group failed to return on schedule, a massive search operation was launched. Rescuers entered the frozen mountains unaware.
After days of searching, rescuers found the expedition's tent. It stood abandoned on the frozen mountainside. Investigators immediately realized this was no ordinary campsite. Every object, every footprint, and every leading away from the tent, investigators found a trail of footprints disappearing into the frozen wilderness. The footprints led investigators to the edge of a dense forest. Here, the mountain seemed to surrender its first clues. At the foot of a towering cedar, investigators uncovered more pieces of the puzzle. Every observation was... As the investigation expanded, more search teams arrived from across the region. Every hour brought new discoveries. Inside the investigation headquarters, every photograph, every weather report, and every handwritten note became another piece. Investigators carefully retraced the hikers' final route, hoping the landscape itself might reveal it. Despite weeks of investigation, the mountain refused to give up all of its answers. Weeks of investigation produced thousands of observations, photographs, and official reports. Yet the more evidence investigators collected, eventually the investigation came to an end. The evidence was preserved, the reports were archived, and the mystery entered history. More than 6 years later, the mystery refused to disappear. A new generation of historians returned. Every photograph preserved more than a moment. It preserved a story. Decades later, these images continue. Time has transformed the evidence, but not the landscape. The mountains remain exactly where they have always been. Modern researchers return to the mountain with new technology and decades of scientific knowledge. Their goal was not to rewrite.
Using modern terrain analysis and historical weather data, researchers carefully recreated the conditions of that winter night.
Rather than relying on speculation, researchers tested multiple scientific explanations against the mountain itself. Over time, many theories emerged, but historians and scientists returned to the same principle. Today, the mountain appears peaceful. The snow has long erased the traces of that winter night. Although decades have passed, the evidence still remains. Every preserved photograph, more than 6 decades have passed, yet the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to challenge historians, scientists, and explorers. What began as a remote mountain expedition eventually became one of the world's most studied historical mysteries. Every generation has returned to this mystery with new questions, better technology, and a deeper respect for the elites. Generations have changed, technology has advanced, and history has been studied more carefully than ever before. Nature keeps no records, yet it remembers everything. The search for understanding never belongs to just one generation. Each historian builds upon the work of those who came before. History leaves behind more than documents. Sometimes it leaves behind a place, a landscape that can...
6 years later, the expedition is remembered not only for its mystery, but for...
The mystery has never stopped inspiring new expeditions. Historians and researchers continue returning to these mountains. Every photograph, Every journal, every report tells part of the story. But together, some mysteries may one day be fully understood. Others may remain forever incomplete. What truly survived was more than a mystery. It was the human desire to preserve the past, to question what we do not yet. The mountain has never spoken. It simply waits, unchanged through the passing of maps record places, but history records journeys. Every line drawn across this mountain, everything changed here on a quiet mountainside surrounded by endless wilderness. Time moved forward. The pursuit of truth does not end with a single investigation. Each generation examines the surviving evidence. Perhaps the greatest legacy of this story is not the mystery itself, but the generations of people who refuse to stop.
Evidence can be preserved. Knowledge can be shared. And through every generation willing to learn.
Long after the expedition, the investigations, and the headlines faded, these mountains remain exactly as they have always been. Time moves forward, seasons change, and generations come and go. Yet beneath these same scenes, history does not end when an investigation closes. It continues through every preserved document. The Dyatlov Pass Incident reminds us that history is more than answers alone. It is the courage to ask questions, the discipline to follow evidence. Some mysteries may one day be solved. Others may remain forever beyond our reach.